I think we're ready to go ahead and start. Welcome everyone to this episode of Let's Talk Solutions, where we'll be reviewing GE NXT 101. A couple of housekeeping items. We'll be recording this session, so a recording will be sent out to all those that have registered. And if you have any questions, please enter them in the Q&A. We do want this to be an interactive training session, so use the Q&A. Before we kick off, I want to do a quick poll with all of those on, so I'm going to launch that. About half the people have participated, so if you haven't participated yet, the poll is, are you a GE NXT or GE Classic user? Please answer the poll. Great. Well, this is about split. So we have about 53% of the people on the call are using GE Classic and about 47% are using GE NXT. I'm going to end the poll here. Oh, it shifted a little. About 72% of our participants did that poll. Great. So let's move on. So I'd like to introduce Jill Byrne. She comes to us with 15 years of experience being a senior solutions engineer. And my name is Amy Strom, the Director of Client Success here at NPACT. I'm going to be handing this over to Jill. Take it away, Jill.
All right. So today, we are going to go over some key features in GE NXT, including navigating the system, the best methods for searching, reviewing the menu bar, and then we're going to dive into the three main record types, that being grants, funds, and constituents. And then, making sure that Sync Harmony is working and our data is flowing across our integrated financial system and CRM. And then we'll dive into creating a grant and processing through a check run. Hopefully we have enough time for Q&A at the end. We're going to open it up, but as Amy has mentioned, please use the Q&A button that's kind of towards the bottom of the screen to post your questions. We've got some folks on from Impact to help answer those questions, and then we'll leave a little time at the end. All righty, so let's see it in action. All righty, here. All right. So hopefully you're seeing the login. So let's start with kind of the basics here. Logging into GE NXT, you should be set up by your system administrator with your login credentials, but we've got a few options that are on here, such as connecting to your integrated CRM system, connecting to your integrated finance system, and then keeping me signed in. The keeping you signed in, that's really convenient. So that next time you use this browser to access GE NXT, it'll attempt to log you in automatically, which is really nice and for anybody that accidentally closes browser windows when they're really not done. And so that's a great way to get back in pretty quickly. And then of course, forgot password. Be careful when attempting to log in. If you enter an incorrect password too many times, you're going to end up getting locked out of this screen for 20 minutes. So if you cannot remember that password, go ahead and choose that forgot password link where you'll be prompted for your email address, and then you will be emailed a temporary password. And then when you use that password to log in, you'll be asked to change it to a new one. So just some basics about logging in. Once I log in, as it wants me to do it twice, apparently. Notice these little pop-ups in the corner. Sometimes they're referred to as toast messages, which always makes me giggle, thinking of a piece of toast popping up. There's lots of different notifications that the system is going to present to you as you navigate around. Some of those might be troubleshooting messages. Others just might be alerts that someone has activated on the record you're viewing. So we'll see a few of those as we navigate around. So let's just start off with just kind of an introduction of what we're seeing here. One of my favorite features is this search up at the top. It has kind of a Google-ish or Google type return. So as I start typing in values, notice that it starts to try to identify what I'm looking for and present me with the various record types. As I mentioned at the beginning, we've got 3 main record types: our constituent record, our fund records, and our grant records. So with the last name of Byrne, these are the items within the system that it's connecting to that search value. That's just something that's super easy and pretty efficient to use right away at the top. As we go across the system from left to right, of course, there's our home area here. Now, for those classic users, your home page has some various items within it, such as alerts and tasks and to-dos. I'm going to show you where those things are in NXT as we go through our tour today. But one of the things to notice is the release notes page. This is really great for keeping in the know with what features and various upgrades and different items that were released. One of the nice things about being hosted by Impact, when we release iteratively and we have new functions and features, there isn't anything you have to worry about. We do that upgrading and that updating for you. So if you'd like to see what happened, those release notes give you a list of what changed when that release came out. So just something to keep an eye on your homepage. Some menu items as we continue our tour. Underneath the grants, of course, is where our grants and our funds and our constituents. So there's our record types in there. And we're going to circle back into a few of these here in a few moments and kind of deep dive into the anatomy of these records in a few moments. But as we continue our tour, of course, proposals, those are ways that we can interact with our proposals from the system for anyone doing scholarships, your applications, your applicants, managing your funds and your institutions. All of that scholarship management occurs under there. And then for anybody that's using Spectrum, of course, you have Spectrum is our web portal for all of our fund holders and our board members, our reviewers. So everybody interacting with the foundation using that online website of Spectrum, the web portal, those interactions and those activities surface or translate through to GE for you to manage, such as folks that are asking for access to Spectrum and the web processing queue. And then, of course, anybody that's submitting different types of applications, whether that's for proposals and programs or scholarships. And then, of course, we can manage those online applications and how they show up. So, of course, we've got reviews. And using the review menu option allows you to create the parameters or define how you want the reviews to go, whatever your ranking system happens to be, whether that's numeric or maybe it's alpha and numeric, whatever that combination, whatever your scoring rubric happens to be, you can define that and build that here. Identifying who your reviewers are, creating your committees, and then, of course, your application groups. All of that, again, are items that you see within GE Classic for our Classic users. that we have moved or made available out here in GE NXT. It's a good time to note that here at Impact, we are putting a considerable amount of effort into full parity, reducing the need to have to traverse out to what we call admin view or GE Classic. And so more and more of that functionality is moving out here to the NXT version. Eventually, the Classic version will only be for those types of administrative duties. Your day-to-day processes and workflows will happen out here in NXT. Of course, we've got reporting out here and being able to query on the data. Super new and exciting for those of you on the call today. With our release that's coming up here in the spring, we will be creating a whole new reporting landscape for you as we're changing to using Microsoft BI and using more of those intelligence types reports. So more to come on that. Definitely stay tuned. As it gets closer to that release, we'll be promoting the use of BI. Batching, of course, being able to create my dockets for any of you that go through that board review. Those dockets can then be deployed or pushed out to Spectrum, where our board members can log in and take a look at those dockets and perform their tasks. Check runs, we're going to circle back to check runs here in a few moments. This is our way of communicating with our financial system. When I've got grants that are ready to be paid, I'll be creating a check run, sending that off to my integrated financial system for those payments to be generated. And then, of course, we can perform an encumbrance batch and encumbrance that money within the fund. Few more things coming out into batch with our next release. So I'm super excited about our next release that's coming in the spring, as again, we're working towards more and more of those classic functions being present out here in NXT. Under the control panel, this is where kind of more of your administrative duties happen. And I guess I should preface this with, depending on your user role, I'm logged in with kind of carte blanche access, where I have all the bells and whistles opened up to me. So I'm getting to present to you all the menu items. Of course, your security role might change what menu options that you see presented to you. So if you're not in that administrative role at your organization, you might not have access to some of these options here. We'll kind of circle out our tour here with some items that we're seeing over on this left side, or excuse me, on the right side, including my login. Notice that I've got a little drop-down caret here. I can traverse into my account, I can sign out. But really what's important over here is for those of our clients, our customers that are using an integrated system, such as with Razor's Edge, anybody using the Blackbaud products, Razor's Edge NXT or Financial Ed NXT, you're going to see these little icons light up, which is telling me that I'm successfully connected to those systems. You know, we really try to promote working smart, not hard. And so our integration across the systems is to allow you to do your processing, your end-to-end, hopefully within GE NXT, reducing the need to have to traverse off into those other systems. But if I need to, I'm going to show you some kind of pro tips here as we go along with our tour. So if I do, maybe there's something where I got to go check that out in my Razor's Edge, or I got to go check this out in my financial system, my FE. There's ways within GE very quickly I can pop over to those other systems. And we'll round out our tour here with our alerts. So earlier I'd mentioned for our classic users, you're used to your home page kind of presenting you with your daily to-dos, some reminders, and different types of alerts. In NXT, many of those have made their way over here into this alerts menu. And again, kind of depends on your role in the system, what you might see within this. But here's some examples of, my user role is in charge of maintaining and monitoring my web users. So we're talking about the Spectrum portal right here. And so maybe some of my Spectrum users have locked themselves out or need some help. So I can go out there and take a look. Syncing sometimes has a little hiccup. I'm sure we've all experienced ghosts of the machine, but GE, FE, and RE in my scenario are all talking to each other. But there are times where that syncing might become interrupted. For example, if records are locked out and GE can't talk to those other systems, that I might get a sync error. So I can pop in there and take a look at what that's about. A lot of times those can be resolved by simply just sending the information over. So new online grant requests, again, that's related to Spectrum. So if out on Spectrum, I've made available to my fund holders the ability to do a new grant request, then they'll show up here in this bucket. Maybe I've allowed my fund holders out there on Spectrum to make some changes to their investment strategies. And so I can take a look at what those are. And then the last one, the one that you're probably most used to seeing for our classic users, are your workflow tasks. So I can see and I can drive right into that list and work through my to-dos, so to speak, and complete all of my tasks that I need to do right from here. All right, and then lastly, of course, admin view for any of those reasons that I might need to pop over there and check out admin. So what about our help over here? You're probably noticing our little green arrow over here trying to get my attention, and that's where our help is at. There's a lot of help articles that will guide you, give you a little insight into what you're looking at within the screen, and where you can find that help is right there. This panel is super easy to use. It's docked over here to the side, but I can undock that and bring it out and move it out of the way if I need to. And then, of course, advance and move around the different articles within. If I need to get a hold of the help desk, I'm running into some challenges, I can choose that link, fill out this form, send it on into support where they will address my concern. Another thing that is super helpful and useful in addition to our help is our knowledge base articles. We had a major release of knowledge base about a month ago, and we are continuing. This is continuing to evolve. These knowledge base articles help step you through some common processes, might have some helpful tips and tricks, and so forth. We're continuing to expand this library, and we also will have some new trainings that are going to be coming out here in the spring that are exclusive for GE NXT. So again, with our efforts to move all of our functionality and your day-to-day processes out here to NXT, look for that training library to start becoming more and more robust as we continue to deploy trainings that are specific to NXT. All right, so let's dive into some of those records that I was talking about before. Let's start with some grants. Now, we're going to go through grants, funds, and constituents. And then, as Amy pointed out with our agenda, I'm going to circle back into grants, and I'm going to demonstrate creating a grant and then taking it through a check run and processing that payment. So we'll circle back to that process here in a few moments, but let's just tour the grant record for some of you that use the classic version, this might be presented to you in a different way. So what are we seeing here? At the top, we've got information like aggregates related to my total grant count, my payments committed, maybe my recently accessed will be promoted at the top. Then we get some KPIs, some graphical representations of my data, which is really convenient. So at a glance, I can take a look at my grants by type, and then also the number of grants by month. Just some little graphics there to help out with your data. And then we'll talk about new grant here in a few moments, but this grid that appears down at the bottom here, I've got a lot of flexibility, a lot of things at my fingertips that I can do to personalize this. And this is user specific. So your user login might, which is different than someone else there at the organization, and how they have configured and presented their lists might be different than yours. So it is user specific, but I can do things like move these column headers around. I can change how they're ordered. By choosing this option here, I can then change what columns I see. Maybe I want the payee name. Apply that change, and then notice that now my payee name showed up. Maybe I don't like it way over there. I want to scoot it over here. I can do that. I can also readjust all of these column sizes. All of this personalization, again, is user-based. Nice thing is it's sticky. So once I add this, it stays the same when I traverse off to other screens in the system. Some other options I have here are some filtering values. So if I want to hone in on a specific group of grants, I can do that. And then lastly here, one of my favorite things about NXT is how easy it is to export this. I don't have to create a fancy query and try and export. I don't have to create a report. Once I filter and kind of slice and dice this data how I want it presented here in my grid, I can choose this export option and get this data out into a CSV, where of course I can open it with Excel and manipulate the data there. So lots of interactions and personalizations that I can do right here within this grid. Again, we're going to circle back to grants here in a few moments, but let's look at the other record type, our funds. We're presented with similar screen that we just saw under grants. So we've got some summaries, some aggregates here at the top, our KPIs, our graphical representations of our data here, broken up by fund types and fund categories. Again, types and categories are one of those things that you can configure in the system and create the values that make sense for your organization. Integration with the various systems. You've heard me talk about your integrations with your CRM and your financial system. In my case, I'm using Blackbaud's Razor's Edge and Financial Edge NXT. Part of that capability to be integrated with those systems means that we can holistically look at that data across those systems. So earlier I mentioned how we design the system to try and make you empowered with the data so that you can try and stay in GE, reducing the need to have to navigate off into the various systems. And so this all-in-one view here gives you exactly that. So I'm looking at the fund across GE, Razor's Edge, and Financial Edge. Notice that if I click on these icons, very quickly I can log into my my Razor's Edge instance and pull this fund up within RE NXT. So here's my fund in Razor's Edge. Pop back over here to GE. I'm presented with a little bit of data that I see across those systems presented to me in one view, such as my fund summary. So I'm pulling in those financials from FE. It's a good thing to note how Sync Harmony and how the syncing works. With our Razor's Edge data, which is usually our constituents and some of our fund information, that data moves a little quicker. That's more real time, usually 10 minutes or less. My financial data, my FE integration is usually an overnight. And so the financial information is being refreshed overnight while we're all sleeping. But as you can see, I can traverse through and see my fund summary. I can see the gifts that are related to this fund, any of the grant payments that have been issued related to this fund. All of these blue links traverse me, or if I click on them, take me into those specific records. The investment strategy is also here where I can edit straight from this screen. And then the alerts. Remember those toast messages I was talking about earlier? Maybe I want to take a look at what alerts are related to this fund, and I can do that from here also. So that's the kind of our comprehensive view of that fund across the three systems. Once I open or expand this fund record, I've got a little more detail into what information is related to that fund. A lot of the data that we have is presented in these tiles that you're seeing down here. These tiles can be collapsed. If I collapse them all up, notice that they're all these different headers. I can move these tiles around to however they make sense for me. This is another one of those sticky features, those sticky kind of personalizations I can do to the system that are unique to my user role. I can pop these all back open, all of these tiles, and see that information presented to me. Some of this information is going to be read only because, again, it's pulling in across the various databases, while some of it are information that I can change. Usually that's indicated by this little box with the pencil in it. That's letting me know that there's items within that tile that I can edit. Versus like this investment ones, notice it, we don't have much of that there. We've got an edit investments over here. So you just have to kind of take a look at these screens, and some of them are these tiles, and some of them again are going to present information as read only, like my discretionary allocation here is read only, versus some allow me to do some editing again within that pencil. So that is our funds. Let's pop into constituents here. Now, typically, we recommend as good practice that you perform your constituent maintenance within your CRM. So address changes, anything related to the constituent and their relationship with your organization is typically, and what we consider best practice, maintained within that CRM system. A lot of the same presentation here on the screen that you've seen now a couple of times, such as we've got some aggregates up at the top, and then a KPI over here. By type, again, type is another one of those configurable drop-down boxes. So whatever types you're adding into the system, you can see here. And usually that has to do with constituent codes that are being pulled out of our CRM system. So let's see, let's open up one of our constituents here, and I can take you on a tour here of what we're seeing within this constituent record. The items that are up here at the top are usually letting me know what type of activity or what's my relationship with them. And in this case, the ABC Center is a recipient. And so those various types of ways that they are interacting with our organization will be indicated by these codes at the top. Now, I mentioned before about the syncing of the data and how that's happening natively as I'm hooked up with my Razor's Edge here. But I do want to point out this little refresh icon here. That is a way that you can force information to be sent back and forth. So I mentioned before that it's happening automatically, but that there is a way that you can force that data to be refreshed across the systems. Familiar looking tiles, I can move this information, these data sets around, again, making it make sense for me and my various job duties at the organization. I've got my edit tiles here and a couple other information that I can do. If there's been any grants, those are going to be lined up here. Again, these are records within the system, so I can click on these and traverse off into that system. Notice that there's another export option here. That came right out of a user suggestion, so it's a great way of being able to export out those grant payments straight from the screen, and again, not having to create a report or anything. I have the ability to talk to my constituents right from NXT GE here. And so whether that's a document or an email, we'll look at this a little closer here in a few moments. Maybe I want to welcome them. We'll look at correspondence here in a little bit, but that would then show up here, that correspondence history. Any alerts I want to add to the constituent, that again shows up in the corner as a pop-up when folks access this constituent record. And then if they have any associated records, which is really nice, we can take a look at those associated items. I'm going to scroll back up because I want to pause here on our charity check. This is a really awesome feature that comes along with GE NXT subscription, and that is our ability to check the status of this charity within the IRS database. So are they a valid 503c(b)? Are they in good status? And so forth. And again, we do this automatically. You can go ahead and force that to happen. So let's say you added a brand new constituent and you want to run that right away, you can. And then you also can override it. If by chance it comes back and says that their status is not good standing, but you have a relationship with that organization, and so you're aware that they do need to have that grant issued to them, you can manually override that. And the reason why I bring that up is because in a few moments we're going to process a grant payment, and we're going to run a check run. The check run has baked into it some validations. One of those validations is this charity check. And so as I'm processing the payments, the transactions, it will do that one more time, just kind of validate them. And so if you, again, if you're aware they're with the IRS, maybe not in the greatest standing, but you want to override that, you want to make sure you do that before you're doing the check run, or it'll stop the payment from being issued. Again, we've got our little icons showing these values. This constituent is also present within my integrated CRM and my finance system, since they are a payee. I can easily, as I showed you guys earlier, click on these, and then those databases will open with this record in there. So hopefully we've made it so that it's easy to roll around across the various systems with just a couple of clicks. All right, so now that we've taken a tour of GE NXT, let's dive into a basic process. Let's do some grant management here. We're going to create a new grant. I'm going to go here into our grants menu. And there's a couple of ways of doing that. We've got a new grant button here. Also this little plusy guy here, he'll do the same thing. But notice that there's various types of grants in the system, such as if there's a project, maybe one of our fund holders wants to move some funds amongst their different accounts. And then, of course, we've got the ability to create a scholarship grant. Today, we're going to just do basic here and start with creating a new grant. There's a variety of different fields that I'm presented with, so let's kind of review these. And by the way, just to remind you, in these ad forms, notice I have my little help icon. And so at any time when I'm filling these out, if I just need a little guidance, maybe I don't do this very often or I'm new, I just want a little guidance on what I should be typically filling into these fields. For example, status. Notice that the status is grayed out, and that's because I'm initiating this as a brand new grant. But if I want to pop that open, I can see some of the statuses that come with the system, but notice that your organization also has the ability to tailor or personalize the statuses that appear in the drop-down boxes. But we do list the ones that come with the system, and these are the possible grant statuses and then what they mean. So we've got a handful of them in there for you. So let's see, I'll default to today's date or received date. So that might be the date that we received the notice from my fund holder. Request type, this drop-down box is configurable. And so your organization has complete control over what values you see there. We're going to call this one a donor advised. What is the amount of that grant? Let's see, let's do 500. And the contact method, we're going to choose to send out a letter. Now, with your designated grants, you might have a situation where there might be multiple payments. You can certainly set that up here. What fund is associated with this grant? Notice that when our search box comes up, we get a choice. Am I looking in the GE database or am I looking in my RE database for this fund? I'm going to choose my Greeley Family Fund. Now, it will populate, giving you a little bit of metrics, some aggregates there. So I can see what are my total assets, and then, what's my cash available in there. And notice that as of date. Remember, I mentioned that our finances are updating overnight. Well, we're all sleeping. GE NXT and FE NXT are talking to each other. And so it's telling me as of yesterday, you had this much in there. So who is going to be receiving this? Notice I can create a new constituent record on the fly if I need to. I know that these guys are already in my database. So I'm just going to grab these. The ABC Center, they're also going to be my payee. Now, of course, there could be situations where your payee and your recipient might be different. What am I doing? There we go. All right. And then are there any check designation templates? So templates are, of course, set up in our admin view, and this is your opportunity to create kind of a standard type of check designation, and then this is letting you know what that's going to say. You can edit this if you need to on the fly. Special instructions, anything that the donor has indicated to us. And then, of course, our report designation auto-populates. You can edit that. The manager defaults to the user. So I happen to be the one filling this form out, but I can certainly choose from my other users within the system, within the foundation. All right, so now we've created a grant. Let's take a quick tour here of this grant record. just like what we've seen before, kind of the same methodology of presentation of our record. We're going to have some summary information at the top. I can easily pop over to these other records if I need to, as they're all blue linked. A lot of this information came out of what I just filled out. So the grant details, notice that a lot of this was when I was filling it out and adding the grant. We can review that here. If I need to edit any of that, we've got an edit option here. Again, we've got our tiles, so I can expand them, collapse them, and move them around if I need to. Some actions over here. So after I create this grant, if I need to convert it, maybe it should really be a scholarship grant, or we're just going to transfer or do some interfund transfer instead. Those are your options to change the structure of that grant. I can see the fund that's associated with, if I want to add another fund to it, I can do so. Now, workflow. Really nice thing about workflow is, again, you see this in Classic, and we're enhancing it for NXT. So the workflow can be automatically added based on your templates. You can manually add steps to it. You can also edit these steps. Whatever you need to do to the workflow, you can adjust it here. Our payments, now in this case, I only have one payment, but hey, maybe it's really supposed to be multiple payments. I can come in and change that with my schedule wizard. I can adjust this one here if I need to. Now, in a little bit after we do our check run, we're going to circle back and take a look at how the check run is going to update these values. Such as my check number and my invoice number once that post batch event happens. Characteristics are like a named group of attributes that can be applied to the grant. These are configured in GE admin view. Now, grant characteristics are inherited from the recipient and from the funds. And in my case, I didn't seem to have too many. So let's see, let's add NTE code here. Let's see, we've got, let's see, I know this is going for the Children's Museum. And again, characteristics are a way of kind of measuring or keeping a tab on your impact and so forth. Lots of capabilities around characteristics, such as reporting, being able to segment your data and query on it. Profiles, these are a collection of custom data fields that are configurable by the foundation. And so we can choose different types of profile items. You want to add some ethnicity there. And again, this is, to me, this is also helpful for reporting or for segmenting the data and measuring the data. Any comments that you want to add, you can do so here. Any documentation that you want to add. So this is your way of attaching files. It's also noticed that there's a way that I can email or talk to my recipient. I can do so from this interactive panel. Lots of help for this in the help section. Do I want to add an alert? Remember those little toasted pop-up messages that show up in my corner? This is our way of adding an alert, whether that's the grant, the recipient, or the payee, the fund advisor. Where do I want that alert to show up? On which one of these associated records? What happens is when users access those records, that message will pop up over here in the corner for them. And what are those associated records? They're all listed here. Again, since they're blue linked, I can very easily traverse off and examine those further, here's a pro tip. If you don't want to lose where you're at, you can certainly right click on these and then just open in a different window. And our activity log is keeping kind of that holistic view of what's going on, what's happening with this record, what am I changing, what have different users done. I can review that historical or that activity log. And at this point, we've pretty much just created our grant. All right, now that I've created my grant, I'd like to pay my grant. So let's prepare our award for the recipient. We're going to create a check run batch, which will generate grant payments to be sent to our integrated financial system. And again, in my case, it's going to be FE-NXT. All right, so let's go into our check run. Same type of screen presentation. We've seen this a few times now. I can rearrange these columns. I can export this out. I can filter, got all sorts of capabilities here as the user. I want to create a new check run. Down below in this grid, notice it says available grant payments. So these are the ones that are available. Here's the guy that I just created today. Now in my demo and training environment, of course, I've got a whole handful of these because I'm showing the product off so much. But generally, what you'll see below are the ones that, that you just worked with. I want to choose from this option over here. I can singly choose these one at a time, or if I choose this box at the top, it'll grab all of these listed below. I just want this guy. I'm going to add him to the check run. Notice now he's popped up here, up at the top. Now, processing. Now that I've loaded up which grant payment I want to make, the processing, a lot of it, the processing takes place under this finance tab. Now, when I run this first option, what I'm doing here is I've updated the status. It's just going to update the status to each payment that I have on that check run. It will go to pending payment. Pre-validate, I mentioned this earlier. This is when the system is going to validate that each payment meets the requirements. So things like making sure that the payment amount is greater than 0. I've got a valid payee, an approved recipient, a valid fund. Remember that charity checker that's running. And so it's making sure that they're valid. All of those things are happening. And then the log is going to indicate the readiness. So I had a little red Xy guy there. When I choose my logs, it's letting me know, hey, what happened? Oops, I meant that one. There we go. So what it's telling me here is, hey, your payee, I don't have a link to a vendor in the finance system. So out there in FE, my payee, the ABC Learning Center, hasn't been set up as a vendor. So that means I might want to go out to FE and create that. Then you can come back in here and run it again, and that'll probably change to a green check mark. Now, in the interest of time, as we have just a few minutes with each other remaining, I'm going to move on, but that would be how you would clear that one up. When I want to create the payments, of course, that's going to create the actual payments over in the FE system. And the reason why it's not is because of that problem there. But as I mentioned, these will all turn green once you fix that. So at that point, what you've done is created the payments in your integrated financial system. From there, from FE, I would, of course, then process all those payments. So once that happens, you'll come back into GE NXT and run this final option. And the final option is, once the checks have been paid, this step updates the grant payment records with all the payment information like check number, pay date, etc. It also changes the status of the grant to paid. It changes the status of the grant records to printed, if there's still some outstanding, or processed if all the payments have been made. So once this is done, let's go take a look at a grant record as to what happens when that happens. And then let's filter on that status, as I just mentioned, and we're going to filter on that processed. So these are all of my grants that have had their payments distributed. I'm going to pop open that, go down here to my payments, and notice that my status is now paid. Pop that open real quick. And present will also be, because of my integration, that check number and that invoice number. And again, that's based on that final step in my check run to update the records. Okay, so that concludes our demonstration and our tour of GE NXT. So in our final moments here, let's open it up for some questions.
Great, thanks, Jill. There was a question that came in about the grant designation. They thought you had said it wasn't editable, but can you show how that is editable, the grant designation?
The designation, hold on just a moment. So I had to stop sharing. So I might have to grab that back again. Well, the grant I was showing was not a designated grant.
I can let you share your screen if that would work.
Yeah, I'm trying to get in there. The menu option for sharing is not letting me share. Here we go. Yeah, it was all grayed out for a moment. Okay, now it's back up. So here, I guess I'm in a designated grant. I guess I don't remember necessarily saying anything can't be changed, but more of it depends where in the process. So once a grant is paid and sent off to FE, some of the information becomes locked in, and I'm able to change that. So if it's grayed out and it's not something that I'm able to change, so I guess maybe I need to know a little specifically what they were asking, because pretty much everything is editable, just kind of depends where it's at.
That works good. Thank you, Jill. There's another one with what does it look like when a donor recommends a grant through the portal? Can you show that screen?
Sure, that's a great question. Online grant requests, so this is the way that they come in from Spectrum. So they start off as a grant request, and then it allows you to go through your internal kind of vetting process. So this is one that came in through Spectrum, and there's a handful of actions that I can do. So if you have an internal reviewing process, you can then examine, make any changes that you need to, choose the option that it's been reviewed. Notice down here under my activity log, I closed that one. It'll record that I reviewed it. I had to refresh it. And then from here, I can choose to create grant. So what I just demonstrated was creating a grant from within GE. But if it comes from Spectrum, it starts off as an online grant request. I open this record up, make the changes that I need. From here, I then choose that create grant. This was my donor advice. They contacted me via Spectrum. And now I've created the grant, which is now out here in my grants list.
Jill, can you pull up one of those grant records? And they want to be sure that the report designation field, which I believe is in the grant record, they want to be sure that they can override those fields. It feeds from the check designation field.
Yeah, so Amy, I've just taken a look at that in production. This is Jeff Armstrong, folks. I've just taken a look at that in production. It is editable as far as I can see. If you want to scroll up to the top here, Jill, at the edit button there in the button strip.
Yeah.
This will allow you, if you scroll down, there's the check designation, which is editable. You can choose one of the predefined templates and have it put in a value. You can override whatever was selected there in that check designation field. There's the editor button. And then if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see there's also report designation, and this is editable as well. So these fields are editable on the grant request.
Yep. That's why I was a little confused by, because I actually promote, reviewing this. And then if you need to make any changes, the templates, of course, are kind of giving you your standards. But obviously, if you have something else that you want to add to it, you can type that into there.
Right. And that's definitely a great recommendation. This check designation gets sent over as a part of the Financial Edge AP invoice for that memo line, right? The first 60 characters get put on the memo line of the check. This can be printed on the check stub. So yes, taking a look at these check designations before doing that financial processing is a very, very good call.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Great. Well, we have, we're right about at the end of our time. We do have a number of questions that are still being entered in the background through our Q&A. So we'll stay online to get some of those answered, as well as follow up with anyone that had asked for some follow up to them. Any other questions anyone wants to bring up? Let's see. I'm going to quick share my screen. Great. Well, if there's something we can help you with, or you have additional questions, please reach out to either Jill or I, and we're happy to assist or get you to the place that can assist. And also, let's stay in touch. Please contact hello@impact.com to receive any updated communications from Impact. We do have our these learning sessions monthly, so watch our webpage for updates on that, and really connect with us through LinkedIn, through Twitter, as well as YouTube. These recordings will be sent out to everyone that is registered for the event. Thanks all for joining today.
Thank you, everybody.